What is the soul of a game? What is it that keeps a game remembered? When we think of the greatest RPGs of all time, our minds are immediately filled with memories of magnificent sights that transcend the boundaries of fiction. Amongst those sights are the iconic cities that define these immersive worlds. Picture the unforgettable moments you first stepped foot into the towering walls of Stormwind in World of Warcraft. Remember the breathtaking view of the holy sea of Ishgard in the Final Fantasy. Recall the intensity as you venture into Elden Ring's Liendel, witnessing the remnants of the great dragon Gransax. Imagine walking into the bustling streets of Beoclair in Witcher 3, or gazing upon the majesty of Anor Londo, the city of the gods in Dark Souls. These cities hold a special place in our hearts, becoming part of the very soul of the games they inhabit. As of the time of recording of this video, Genshin Impact is nearing its third year as a game, and with the fifth nation of Fontaine on the horizon, Genshin has no shortage of primary world hubs that players can go in order to complete their daily tasks. The bustling city of Sumeru that exists atop of the Divine Tree, the city of Inazuma, situated across a mystical mountain and an island nation across the sea, Liyue Harbor, a city with a floating palace that sits in direct opposition to an island range where the god of contracts once subdued the sea gods of old. Amongst these, Mondstadt, a simple, generic European medieval city, really does not stand out. And yet, it feels like it could have not worked better any other way. So, why exactly is it that Mondstadt feels like home? And what exactly is it that makes Mondstadt, well, Mondstadt? In essence, Mondstadt is just another generic European fantasy city, similar to any other fantasy city which you can see in a given isekai. Take the city of Lagunica from ReZero as an example, another medieval fantasy city that is largely inspired by the Germanic European lands. Or quite literally any human city that you see in Mushoku Tensei, to be honest. Mondstadt is largely the same, albeit significantly smaller due to in-game limitations, but I will get to that discussion later in the video. But it is that very simplicity of Mondstadt that somehow makes it feel right. When a player first enters the world of Genshin, a place like Mondstadt feels precisely like what one would expect from a medieval fantasy world. To people familiar with the genre, the architecture, NPCs, and the giant intimidating dragon, it all makes sense, which creates a hidden but crucial sense of familiarity to the player, and allows for the said player to build a connection with the world. Now, obviously we all know that as the story progresses and the plot moves forward, the world of Genshin starts to stray away from its medieval fantasy roots, as it builds upon its own lore and constructs the direction of the story. And honestly, that is perfectly fine. All in all, Genshin does world building quite well. But it is also not the topic of this video, so maybe we can discuss it later. However, there is more to Mondstadt than the simplicity of its concept. When people talk about historical moments, they tend to attribute certain people with certain titles. Surely you have always heard about the one person who is dubbed the greatest of all time. People who define a field that they are in, and in some situations define entire eras. Funny enough, in our modern age, a popular example of such sentiment exists in the form of John Cena, where it is a common statement to say, there will never be another John Cena. And that is true. No one will ever be able to play John Cena better than John Cena himself does. And this gets me to my next point. Mondstadt's characters in Genshin Impact are truly irreplaceable. Each character possesses a unique essence that distinguishes them from the others. Diluc, for instance, embodies his role like no one else can. No one can fulfill the character of Diluc better than Diluc himself. Similarly, Jean, Kaya, and Albedo too contribute immensely to the identity of Mondstadt, each holding an irreplaceable presence that solidifies the story's foundations. In fact, Mondstadt boasts the majority of Genshin Impact's vital characters as I see it right now. Characters that in many instances perfectly align with what Teyvat represents. The City of Wind of Freedom, Under the Animo Archon, Barbatos is not a mere introductory nation. It is a major narrative foreshadowing for what is to come. These characters personify the essence of the story, the gateway to Teyvat, from Bennett's adventurous spirit to Kaya, who belongs to an ancient kingdom within the abyss, Jean, who looks up to Vanessa in the heavens above, and Lisa, who teases the prize of knowledge that we learn about in Sumeru. The impact of Mondstadt's characters was crucial to the success of Genshin Impact. Part of this success can be attributed to how characters like Amber, Jean, and Lisa, and of course Kaya, are introduced to the player. While they may initially seem like modified versions of medieval fantasy stereotypes, this portrayal is not a negative aspect. On the contrary, it adds depth and familiarity. Moreover, characters like Kaya and Albedo are exceptionally multifaceted. Surpassing their initial appearance as the story progresses, they are poised to play significant roles, adding further depth to the narrative of Genshin. It is a common occurrence in the greatest video games of all time for there to be a jaw-dropping and awe-inspiring sight that leaves the player speechless. These moments are so captivating that you can't help but stop and marvel at the sheer beauty and artistry. Whether it's your first sight of the Divine Realm in Sekiro, the first time you ever reach Irithyll of the Boreal Valley in Dark Souls 3, the stunning depiction of ancient Greece in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, or God of War's celestial spark of the world from Surtur's Forge in Muspelheim. Game developers who can create such powerful landscapes are undoubtedly genius artists. Personally, I will never forget the moment I left the stranded graveyard in Elden Ring and entered the first step where I was greeted by the legendary Erdtree in all its glory. So far, so out of reach. It was an unforgettable sight that took my breath away, because that very sight immediately told me something so significant, and what it said was, you had not seen anything yet. But make no mistake, Genshin Impact's rich and expansive open world is filled with breathtaking moments of its own. From the Harveseptochum of the Vurukasha Oasis to the towering pillars of the Hoaguang Stone Forest, and from the seat of Deshret within the city of Kajnisut to the Epam Woods where ancient giants reach to the sky. There is no shortage of awe-inspiring locations in Genshin. Even the humble sight of Liyue's fascinating lights during rainfall, or the sweeping view of all of Inazuma from the top of Mount Kana can leave players in awe. And obviously, the greatest of them all, the eerie yet enchanting visage you get from the Sun Chariot when you first step foot into Enkanomiya. Yet, amidst all these remarkable places, there is one location in all of Genshin that, for me, stands above the rest. It is a place in Mondstadt that I find myself returning to time and time again, never growing tired of its magic. In fact, I like this view so much that I dedicated an entire video just to discuss it. So, what is it? It's this. An open grassland representing the freedom of Genshin, the adventure and all of the possibilities along the way. A tree reaching out to the heavens, standing in solidarity representing a champion of old who is now above in the sky, and a song of an ancient distant past, a peaceful hymn of a world that once was. This right here, to me, this is what makes Mondstadt the soul of Genshin Impact. A simple view, an open grassland with a solitary tree. And I find it ironic that in the world that is full of magic, gods, and monsters, where there is a talking mushroom tree, a floating inverted mountain, a city beneath the ocean, and an entire kingdom beneath the earth, it is this seemingly ordinary scene that draws me back to Genshin Impact every single time. It is this very view within the nation of Mondstadt, that to me embodies the soul of Genshin. And that got me thinking, why? What is it that is so special about Vanessa's tree at Windrise that I find so captivating? Throughout my life, I have lived in the scorching deserts of Kuwait, walked across the Mediterranean mountains of Lebanon, been to the exalted cities of Greece, passed across the vast olive farms of Spain, seen the forests of Florida, and the freezing winters of Ontario, just to name a few. Yeah, I have lived across many countries and been to many places. Long story short, while conducting research along the Erdley Escarpment with my colleagues at work during the summer of 2022, we happened to pass by the Champlain Lookout, and it was there where I saw what I still consider to this very day the most beautiful scene I had ever looked at in my life. And this is it. There was nothing special about it whatsoever. Just a simple, open grassland showcasing the Ottawa River Valley. And trust me when I tell you, the 2 pictures I took do not do that view justice at all. And that brings me all the way back to the generic simplicity of Mondstadt. Now, of course, I still have my own gripes with the game. For example, the lack of endgame and the presentation of some character stories are things that I find disappointing, but those are topics for another time and they have little to do with this video. So, I suppose that I should say that I carry a great deal of respect towards the developers of Genshin. Howeverse, I truly believe that they have managed to create an amazing world with profound lore behind it. To that end, the developers of Genshin are some of the industry's best in my eyes. And look where they started. A city within a lake. Ordinary video game NPCs. A giant church where the inhabitants of the city worship their god. Bards, taverns, medieval knights, and an adventurer's guild. Sometimes, it's the simple things that count. Now, it is worth mentioning that the size of Genshin Impact, the video game, is significantly, and by the way, when I say significantly, I need to emphasize here that I really mean significantly, smaller than what the continent of Teyvat is supposed to look like. Within the lore of Genshin, well, a single look at the Genshin anime teaser that came out in 2022 is all you need to see in order to realize what I mean. By extension, this means that the cities of Teyvat that we have right now, you know, Inazuma, Sumeru, Mondstadt, Liyue, and the soon-to-be Fontaine, they are all the size of large castles by real-life measurements, but are going to be way bigger in the story of the game, and in fact are way bigger in lore. In other words, the anime is going to have more features, more towns, more villages, and that is quite important to mention, even as a side note. Okay, this is me from the future. I just finished editing all of the videos, or rather all of the sections of the video. It is now processing, and I am recording this outro in order to just add some closing statements. First of all, thank you to anyone who has gotten to this point. If you watched the video, I greatly appreciate you. And I looked at the clock, and apparently I've been working on this non-stop for 23 hours, which is insane, because I do not think I've ever done anything continuously for 23 hours in my life. But regardless, it's not really physically exhausting, it's just, it takes a lot of time. I'll probably be tired in a few minutes once reality kicks in, but doing this, I do have to say, gave me profound appreciation to people like Ashikai, because I know she puts an enormous amount of effort into her videos, and the amount of editing I had to do, it just put into perspective how much work she puts to produce the high quality videos that she produces. So yeah. Anyway, about Mondstadt, yeah, Mondstadt, I think it's due for an expansion sometime later this year, or earliest of next year. And if not, I will be disappointed, but I do not think I will, because I do think that the nation is gonna get an expansion. Fontaine is coming, and Fontaine borders Mondstadt. If they don't fill the gap, it's gonna be. Let's just say it's gonna look really bad on the map. And is there anything else? Nope, there is nothing else. I've said everything I had to say. This is what it sounds like when I'm not heavily editing the video. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next time. The new Hell's Paradise episode is out. Nice.